Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ravens Talk Podcast, Episode 1, inaugural episode, numero uno. We are live here at the Level 9 Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. It is a great day to be a Ravens Talk Podcast listener, all right? We have a lot to get to over the season. It's a big season for the Ravens. But before we go in depth with what's going on with the season, I believe because it's our first podcast, we have to go back. We have to go back to the beginning of all of this, in the 2023 season, and that is the off season. I've talked about this ad nauseum, about this being, besides 1996, when the Ravens drafted Jonathan Ogden and Ray Lewis, this is probably the biggest offseason in the history of the franchise. And there's only one reason for that, and that is number 8, Lamar Jackson. But to even talk about the offseason, we have to go back a couple of games in the 2022 season where Lamar Jackson missed games that cost the Ravens the chance at really advancing in the playoffs. They still made the playoffs with Tyler Huntley, but they fell short in the Cincinnati Bengals game. And after that game ended, it was all Lamar Jackson. Nothing anyone else could talk about was number 8, and deservedly so. The Ravens had a franchise quarterback the caliber of Lamar Jackson ever. 2019 MVP. Even Joe Flacco didn't have that on his repertoire, on his resume. So the Ravens were in a pickle. Of course, they wanted Lamar Jackson, but he wanted guaranteed money, Deshaun Watson type money. And if you remember, that's fully guaranteed. Now, fully guaranteed is definitely, semantics driven because Lamar Jackson definitely said, I don't want fully guaranteed, but of course, he wants more than Deshaun Watson's making, and deservedly so. The market dictated that Lamar Jackson get that money. Of course, outliers, words like that were spread around by the owners, but in my belief, market was the market. He deserved that money due to the market. But luckily for the Ravens, Jalen Hurts came about, got his money, wasn't fully guaranteed, and the rest is history. He reset the market. Kyler Murray didn't reset the market last year when he signed his contract. No. He's not in the caliber of Lamar Jackson, but Jalen Hurts, he went to the Super Bowl. He had a great season. Runner-up at the Super Bowl. He's in that tier of elitism, as is Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. You get what I'm saying? You feel me? So, Lamar Jackson sees that. He understands the market has officially been reset. He agrees to terms for a new contract, but not before asking for one favor: adding a receiver, getting a receiver in to bolster the offense. No more Tylan Wallace. No more James Prochet. No more Sammy Watkins. No. Get me a guy who's going to show fear to the defense, make sure that everything's not on my back. I get it. I'm the franchise quarterback, but I don't want everything on my back. Get me a receiver. Ravens said, okay. To my surprise, never in the history of the franchise did the Ravens said, I'll get you an elite receiver. Now, when you say elite receiver, some of you thinking, that's not Odell Beckham Jr. Why? Because he had an ACL tear? Because he had 2 ACL tears? People need to understand that injuries are injuries. It's a National Football League. Everyone gets injured. Now, 2 ACL tears are a bit extreme, but professionals have said that his ACL has never been better. His knee is sublime. We heard from Sean McVay of the Los Angeles Rams, who said that he was pretty much in pristine condition when he found out about the ACL tear in the beginning of the season, of last season. So I expect Odell Beckham Jr. to do great things in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. He finally has a receiver he can count on. Rashad Bateman, who's an elite receiver who also has some injury concerns, but I expect him to come back and contribute. And Zay Flowers, the guy they drafted, my guy, the guy I assumed the Ravens would go after, did not think he would go after him after they signed Odell Beckham. Oh, was I surprised. EDC came about and said, you know what? We're going to do this. We're going to have 3 receivers of elite ability, and Odell, Rashad, and now Zay Flowers. A couple of Nelson Aguilar, and we have ourselves a unit in Baltimore finally. No more magic show offense for the Ravens. 2022, look at me. 2022 was the worst season of football I've ever experienced as a journalist, writer, whatever you want to call me. It was so difficult to watch. If you follow me on social media, you know that I was not a fan of 2022. If you're a journalist who watched me or who worked with me in the press box during games, you know how hard it is for me to stay up if the team isn't doing great. 2022 was no different. In fact, it was worse. I was fighting sleep and losing badly. But this season's different. They got rid of Greg Roman, brought in Todd Monken, and I expect things to pick up a little bit. Now, let's talk a little bit about Odell Beckham Jr. because I believe he is a very pertinent topic to discuss for reasons I'll explain now. The Ravens, some may say, overpaid for Odell Beckham Jr. I disagree, and it's because of things that we don't really talk about when it comes to sports. Business. I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada, guys. I'm not in Baltimore. People are talking about Odell Beckham Jr. in Las Vegas. They're talking about him on ESPN. They're talking about him on CNN, CBS, Fox. Are you catching me? Money. Money and prominence is what is important for the Baltimore Ravens, at least on the upscale management perspective. If you remember in I think it was about 2009, 2008, after the Ravens lost that playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers with Joe Flacco's first season, we had a conversation with, I think it was called a State of the Union address, what you guys want to call it, with EDC, well, not EDC at the time, it was Ozzie Newsome, with John Harbaugh and with Steve Bisciotti. They did their regular coach speak, and then afterwards, when we all left, I remember hearing Steve Bisciotti saying, we are going to become a franchise worth talking about. We're going to become the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to become the Dallas Cowboys. And what he meant by that was, on-field success, of course, but he wants to be known. He wants to spread his wings and fly and become something more than just a franchise in Baltimore. And this is how you do it. People are talking about Odell Beckham, one of the greatest receivers, most prominent receivers, most talked about receivers in the NFL, and people are talking about Lamar Jackson. All you see around town are number 8 jerseys, and I expect number 3 jerseys will follow. And that's not just in Baltimore, that's all across the country. That's why you bring a guy like Odell Beckham. Of course, also, he's a great athlete. Also, Lamar Jackson wanted him here, but I believe this is going to pay dividends in more ways than one. We're talking business, and we're talking football. Now, before we get started, we're going to have Matt Jergensen on from Baltimore Sports and Life in a little bit. But before I get to that, I want to talk about how the Baltimore Orioles, once again, now this isn't a Ravens podcast, but I have to talk about it, once again, disregard all elements of right and wrong and just do something so stupid. The Orioles are AL East leaders. The Orioles are probably going to win the AL East, and the Orioles are favorites to win the pennant. So you suspend your guy for saying what? The truth? That you guys have done more the last 2 seasons past than, you've done more this season than the last 2 seasons? Of course. That's obvious. So you fire the guy for that? Well, not fire, suspend? Crazy. I don't agree with it. I think it's dumb. It's gained national media attention. It's gained local media attention, obviously. And we'll have the guy who broke the story about it coming up on the Ravens Talk podcast. All right, Ravens Talk podcast fans, I have with us Matt Jergensen from Baltimore Sports and Life. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing very good.
Good, man.
I'm ready. I'm ready to talk a little football, actually. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get to football, but first, I had to talk about what happened over the past couple of days. Walk us through what happened with the Kevin Brown situation with the Baltimore Orioles.
Basically, it's not any huge story, really. I've been a podcaster and a blogger and kind of on the fringe of the Baltimore sports scene probably since about 2007. I've been writing for, the Russell Street Report and Baltimore Sports and Life and a bunch of other different sites. And, again, I've been doing the podcast with Brent Harris for the last couple of years, Baltimore Blitz. And, through those years, you make a lot of contacts and make friends. And yesterday morning, I found some information out and I was asked to share it. And that's what I did. And it was amazing yesterday for me to watch everything unfold and see the power of social media and just to see, someone like myself, like I said, I don't consider myself a major player or a journalist with a J, I guess, but it's like, you put that out there, and then my hope was that people that are a little more plugged in and connected than I am take that and run with it and check sources. And I think we all saw what happened. So, I mean, it's pretty surreal, to see that I was the start of that, and we'll see where it goes, because I really feel like it's in other people's hands now, and we'll see what that means for, the Angeles, ownership group, and what it means for the people that work there. And but it's been a wild 24 hours, to say the least.
I am 100% sure, but let's not be humble. Okay, you broke the story.
Yeah.
You're the guy that broke the story. And
I did.
For those listening that don't know, the Baltimore Orioles suspended play-by-play TV announcer Kevin Brown after the Tampa Bay Rays game, I believe, in the end of July, and he has not been brought back yet as of this recording. And Matt broke the story that it was because of a frivolous reading of what was pretty much on the prompter for everyone to see. So just more Baltimore Orioles stuff. They're in first place in the AL East as of this recording, and most likely are heading to the playoffs. So this is just a black eye for has been a very turbulent time for the Orioles as far as management is concerned. But
I think, again, right, I don't need to say too much more on that, because you're starting to hear more and more people. It's been some constant issues that they've run into with how they do business. So
yeah. And if you follow me on social media, you know that I'm very big on what the Baltimore Ravens do as far as off the field. They handle themselves in a great manner, and just, excuse me, very weird that another prominent sports team in Baltimore, as the Orioles, are pretty much yin and yang with what the Ravens do as far as business is concerned. So, I mean,
yes.
that's nonsense. Hopefully they straighten things out and everything goes back to normal as the Orioles make a push for the pennant. But let's talk some Ravens. This is a Ravens podcast, by the way. And the Ravens have had a huge offseason. But right now we're in the midst of training camp and the preseason game is coming up. And Matt, I want to ask you, what is a battle of yours that you see? Because the Ravens roster is pretty much set. Usually around this time it is the case, but are there any battles that you're seeing that you're looking forward to in the preseason that you'll be keeping an eye on?
There's probably two that come to mind. I mean, you look at the offensive line, the guard position. Everyone would like, me included, to see Ben Cleveland kind of step up and take that spot. And he refuses to do it, whether it's he's failing a conditioning test or, in the doghouse, Coach Harbaugh's infamous doghouse. He can't seem to be able to catch on. And they have a ton of different options. So it seems to me right now you're hearing that Patrick Ricard is taking snaps at guard as well, because his role is definitely going to change this year without a doubt.
100%.
This new offense. So, it's who's gonna grab that guard spot now that Ben Powers is left. There's a lot of options there, so I'm really interested to see who does really grab hold of that spot, because you have the rest of your guys intact. So we know running the ball is still going to be important, even though I'm really interested in how this, as everyone is, about how this new look offense under Todd Monken's going to look.
Oh man, and it was a snooze fest. It was a snooze fest in 2022. I tell this to anybody who'd hear it. I was fighting sleep and losing the battle in 2022. And fresh faces now with Odell Beckham Jr. now with the Ravens, and Zay Flowers coming in to shore up that receiver spot. Now it's an area of strength. And now we have guys that you thought would make the roster last year who might be fighting for that last spot. Can you tell me about anybody other than the prominent 3 or 4 guys, including Nelson Aguilar and Rashad Bateman, that might be in the running for that 5th and 6th spot?
Well, and that's sort of the point, right? I mean, you started thinking about guys, think of who we were talking about last year, Tylan Wallace, James Prochet. He always ends up sparkling in camp, but then just doesn't ever seem to kind of, whether it's getting the chances or whatever, to show it in a game. And those guys still fighting, even Dever Duvernay, who got a chance, in some time to show that he could be an offensive force, still a Pro Bowl punt returner, but his role, they may not, as long as guys stay healthy. And I mean, everyone's talking about Zay Flowers, just that he continues to impress, and and everyone's forgotten about Rashad Bateman. So I mean, as he's still kind of shaking, the injury bug off. So that whole receiver room because you said it 100%. I mean, there are times this offense really, through Greg Roman, it looked like it just regressed. They were just like, we're just going to get heavier and heavier. We're going to stack as many big guys in the box. We're going to send Pat Ricard out for passes. We're going to use 3 tight ends. And it's some ugly football. I mean, and it's not what the NFL is. And it's nice to see that they brought a guy in that has a different mindset. I think the Ravens have decided, look, we just can't proceed in the same way. And the fact that they got Lamar back in the fold with a new contract, things definitely had to change. So, Nelson Aguilar was one of those first signings I remember, and I was kind of like, okay, that's all right. It seems like a Ravens move, but now he seems like, okay, he could be a piece. He could be a guy that situationally could be very effective as, maybe your 4th guy. But yeah, that 5 and 6, it'll be interesting to see in that first preseason game who are some of those guys that latch on. Because again, the most important thing for those guys is, do they play special teams, and what can they do there? Otherwise, they're not going to be active game day. But I'd like to see again. Well, where does Wallace fit? Where does Prochet fit? And is there really enough room? It's a very crowded wide receiver room at this point.
I love to hear that. I've been a proponent for the Ravens to finally get receivers in that locker room, and they finally have it. And now they have a great problem. I mean, who's going to come in and fill those spots? As you mentioned, special teams is the big thing. John Harbaugh, special teams guy. You probably heard that for the 3 millionth time, but it's very prominent here with Devin Duvernay coming in as the punt returner. We need guys, if you're a Ravens fan, to come in that roster and make an impact on special teams if you're not going to be on the field. Now, we talked about the receivers here. We got to go back and talk about the running back. And J.K. Dobbins is currently holding in. They brought in some fresh legs and maybe some not so fresh legs if you're following Gordon. But what's going on with the J.K. Dobbins situation in your eyes? Do you see this resolving anytime soon? And what are your thoughts about the running back market currently in the National Football League?
I mean, there's a couple ways we can go with that. You're right. I mean, if you look at the market in general, I think actually Melvin Gordon said some things, whether it was today or yesterday, that he said, look, times have changed, and this is how it is for now. It's not going to change until the next CBA, and that's probably another 5 years from now. So we're this is the hand we have right now. We got to go out, we got to play, we got to ball out, and prove that we, get the money we're supposed to get. In the meantime, holding in, I don't see where it makes sense for a guy who's been injured more than he's played in Baltimore to hold in, especially with a new offense.
Yeah.
It just doesn't add up to me, and he's hurting himself. And when you look at the options they have, I mean, look, Gus Edwards now goes up to number 1. Keaton Mitchell has been showing that he might be a nice option. And let's not sleep on Justice Hill. I mean, Justice Hill at times, when he's had times, he's shown to be effective on 3rd down. He's shown to be a good option. And now, again, we're no more of these heavy packages. Spread it out, get guys in space. And I like Justice Hill. Give him the ball a couple times. So I don't understand. I think he got some bad information, J.K. Dobbins, whether it's going to work out for him. He's going to decide to play because that's really the only option he has right now.
Yeah, and I think with this whole running back situation playing a part as far as contracts are concerned, he may have got a little bit overzealous with the holding in part. I think he will come back eventually, but if he doesn't, there are guys like Gus Edwards who will step up and take over, and they won't miss a beat. Now, they're better with J.K. Dobbins than without. Let's not mistake ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, if he's not ready to play, it's next man up. That's the Ravens mantra, and I expect that the Ravens will be fine. All right, before I let you go, I got to ask you one more question, and this is a huge question because I have been a huge proponent of this change, and we've kind of alluded to it, but let's just talk about it in depth. Greg Roman is gone. The run-first style of offense, and I've been talking about this ad nauseum, the whole magic trick. Who has the ball? Is the running back have the ball? Does the quarterback have the ball? Who has the ball? That type of offense was just played out. And now they're bringing a guy, Todd Monken, who comes in to look to reinvigorate the offense and make moves in order to push the Ravens past the divisional round in the playoffs. How do you see this playing out for the Ravens? Do you see the offense improving? They do have some question marks at receiver, but as we alluded to, those receivers are very prominent, and I believe you believe as well that they're going to take that next step. Do you see this offensive philosophy playing dividends early on, or do you think it's going to be one of those wait and see, have it, molding a little bit, and then as the season goes on, they'll take off?
I think this is the change that should have been made probably a year or 2 years ago.
Preach.
I mean, that when we think about this, right, like, and even early on, I mean, Ravens used a lot more three wides early on, especially in the MVP year, and Lamar hit a lot on his deep shots, which became really important. And it seemed like as time progressed, they got away from that. They got more and more into this, as you said, kind of like, let's see where it's almost college-like of like fake here, run this way. And it's just not, and this is a whole other conversation to have for another day, because, when Eric DeCosta said, look, we're going to zig while the rest of the league zags. Well, you did that and it didn't work. And usually when guys do that, they end up fired. And he's not. He's still here. Mm-hmm. That's a whole other conversation to have, believe me. But now, look, I like this idea in that Todd Monken, he's a guy that even made Baker Mayfield look good. So look who he's got now with Lamar Jackson and Odell Beckham. He's got a lot of guys here. There's going to be a learning curve. I think we even heard this week in practice, he kept talking about, okay, the wristband is gone. We're not going to have him look down. Well, the wristbands are back already. Uh-huh. And that's okay. Because what is this right now? It's practice. Right. Guys are working through things, right? They're going to stumble. They're going to have mistakes. They're working through things. So I think we have to expect some growing pains with this. I think we're going to have be patient. But the fact now that you do have at the skill position, some guys that are truly skilled, and some guys that, look, it's not always just look for Mark Andrews on 3rd and 9. You have other options. We have other things that we can do with this. And so I'm really interested to see how it goes. But again, don't see too much in preseason, because a lot of these guys aren't going to play very much. So it's not going to be until really week 1 when they play Houston. A game they should win, but don't expect a blowout yet. At least I'm not. There's going to be some growing pains with it. You're talking about a total change in philosophy and what you want to do in terms of scoring. I think long term, it will definitely be what's best for Lamar and best for the team. But yeah, just temper your expectations. That's all I'd say.
I agree 100%. Now, I don't want to go too far ahead, but I don't think that the Ravens are going to be one of those, bottom of the barrel teams. But I think we should hold our horses a little bit if we're thinking about them being, at the top tier right out the gate. So I think they'll gel a little bit, and then they'll be right up there with the Chiefs and the Bills in the AFC. Well, Matt, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
I'm glad to have it.
Yeah, tell the podcast listeners where they can find your stuff.
Absolutely. You can go on Twitter, or is it X now, or is it X at Twitter? I don't know. But most people, at least, the bird is still there and the X is there. So take your pick. It's at Matt Jergs. And like I said, I'm now writing again at Baltimore Sports and Life. So I'm trying to do at least a writing or two there a week. And of course, Brent Harris and myself, Brent, who's been covering the team for several decades. He and I go way back. We've been doing the podcast. We're now going on year 3. So it's always fun for us to goof around and talk for about 30 minutes about Baltimore Ravens football. We'll start with our first episode this week as he and I put kids into college and get them organized. And
oh my gosh.
We'll be ready. I know. I like to call myself mature and not old. I mean, I know you can see the gray all throughout here. It's wisdom. Mm-hmm. That's what I like to fool myself into saying.
My daughter is just turned 10 months, and college seems like a far, far, far dream from now, but it's coming. I could tell. They grow fast.
It's that old cliche, right? It goes fast. Just enjoy the spot you're in now. That's all I can tell you.
Will do that. Thanks so much for joining me, man. You guys take it easy.
Awesome.
All right. That was Matt Jergensen from the Baltimore Sports and Life website. He also does work with Brent Harris, who we all know and love. He has a podcast as well. So again, like he said, go ahead and check him out, listen to him, and get some more breaking news. And I didn't put this up a little bit. I didn't put this up as much as I should have, but small journalists and bloggers really are the new wave. I know a lot of journalists and national media, and even some local guys, really frown their faces upon bloggers, but this is a prominent example of what it means to be in the trenches and getting scoops. We have to take these guys seriously. Matt Jergensen did a great job of breaking that news story, and we wish him the best. Hopefully the Orioles come to their senses and right the wrong that they committed with Kevin Brown. Now, on to what we are really, really looking forward to, which is the first preseason game against the Philadelphia Eagles. I truly believe this is going to be the start of something special. Now, there are caveats with that. 3 preseason games, 3 chances to get injured. I hate talking about injuries, but God, is there anything that anyone else thinks about during these preseason games than when someone may or may not get hurt? Every tackle, every single time, just, is this it? Is this the one that's going to end the season before it starts? I understand the preseason is important. I understand that we need these games to get these players acclimated to real football and get them ready for the big show. But Lord, I really, really hope that everyone stays healthy and safe, including guys in other divisions. I mean, I watch football no matter what. Prime example, Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow, who was hurt, we think it's a calf injury during training camp. These types of plays, these types of injuries really harm the game. And I want to see the Bengals at full strength go against the Ravens, because that's going to be a great battle, 2 evenly matched teams. And, stuff like that really bugs me. So just want to throw it out there. I want everybody to stay healthy out there. If you're a Ravens player or any NFL player watching or listening on these podcasts, websites, stay safe out there. Do your best to keep healthy so that we can have a great season. That's going to do it here. I know it's a short podcast episode, but just want to get you guys acclimated to my face so you guys can get ready for the season with me. We're going to be meeting hopefully once or twice a week throughout the season, and depending on how the Ravens do, it might be even being up here in Las Vegas. The Ravens Super Bowl chances are high, higher than you think. Chiefs, sure. Bills, maybe. But the Ravens are right up there, and it's because of the moves they made in the offseason. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it. You can follow me on YouTube at Ravens Talk Podcast. You can also follow me on Twitter at Samuel Njoku Sports. This podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Samuel Njoku, signing off. You guys have a good one. Enjoy the preseason, guys.